Welcome to the Straight Red Card. And whenever time and space is compressed, this is the show you need to watch, along with tactical manager and Filippo Silva, who is with us again for the third and last segment of this week's shows. And in this last segment, we're going to take on a lot of things, mostly about who we think is going to stand out in these next three games for the United States men's national team. But I do have a question for Filippo before we get there, and that is, Filippo, do you watch any other sports besides football? Do you have any time to do that?
Rarely. If anything, I kind of follow the NBA because I play with some friends the fantasy app, the Yahoo fantasy app or ESPN, whatever. That's the only reason I follow it. But no, I don't really watch any other sports besides soccer. I don't.
I mean, when you were a kid, obviously, Ayrton Senna was long gone, right? So there was no Ayrton Senna, but you still had, was Felipe Massa or Rubens Barrichello around for F1 when you were a kid?
I didn't watch. Ayrton Senna actually passed away the year I was born. My dad was a big fan of Ayrton Senna, but my dad used to watch a lot of Formula One, and I would wake up in the morning in Brazil, and I would kind of sit down and watch with him a little bit, and then the Premier League games would start right after, and I would go to that. So yeah, Rubinho Barrichello at the time was still racing, and then I caught a little bit of Felipe Massa, but I never cared too much, and it was super early in the morning, so I didn't watch much, but I followed with it.
Yeah, I'm a diehard F1 guy, so Ayrton Senna is like a god to me. But it's so weird that I was watching him and I was a teenager, and you didn't get to see him, and it's too bad because he was amazing. So let's get to this who's gonna stand out thing. Brett actually came up with three, and then we're just gonna kind of riff off of that. Brett, come on, Brett.
I brought up three names, three players who either okay, so I brought up Reyna in the sense that if Greg plays him in the middle, this is his chance to show what he can do for the U.S. And he's got to show up and he's got to perform. Mind you, he's got to perform regardless of where he's at. But if he's in the middle, this is his chance to make a name for himself there. Do you want to go player by player, or do you want to do?
Let's just do that. Let's take that on right away, because my first comment there, Brett, is Reyna's already proven he's a fucking world-class or very near a world-class player. So, yeah, he better be important for us, I would say. Your thoughts, Filippo?
I think Reyna has to be there as one of the three. Reyna has to be as one of the three. I'm actually curious to see who else Brett has there. You're not going to have Roldan, are you?
I cracked that joke before you got on here, actually.
Yes, no, I think he heard the joke too, but no, Roldan better. As I once said, if Lala said Roldan's going to be really important during the qualifiers, and I said if Roldan's really important during the qualifiers, we're fucked, because that's not what we need. We need the guys who should be important to be important. Who's your number two, Brett?
I said Pulisic needs to come into this camp and lead by example. There's been some games where he'll just be ineffective, I guess is the easiest way of wording it. And then, so I'll use Mexico as an example. When he played Mexico Nations League, for like the first 79 minutes, he was hardly even there. And then after that, he led the team. Now, so I just think he's one of the more experienced players. He's been around for a cycle already. He needs to show and lead by example.
Filippo, does Pulisic play the first game?
I think he does. And good thing you're releasing this episode much later than I released my El Salvador preview, which I talk about that. I think he plays.
Yeah, I did too. I think
he starts.
Yeah, why would he not start? Think about
it.
Look,
people are talking about that, so figure it out.
I know he apparently, okay, let's make a few assumptions here based on what I heard and this what they're saying. He was asymptomatic, so he was fine. He was probably even training on his own. He arrived on Sunday. He didn't play over the weekend, so he's fresh. Why would he not play?
Well, something else to consider, and I really don't want to go down this rabbit hole or anything like that, but not only was he asymptomatic, but it is possible as a false positive.
Too, but that would be just speculating. But in regards to that, he was apparently asymptomatic, and if you are asymptomatic, you pretty much go on with your life just normally. So fortunately, Pulisic was one of those, and he should. I don't see why he wouldn't start.
What was the article? Was it Ives' article that was like, well, he hasn't trained for 7 days or 10 days or whatever? And I'm like, yeah, he has. He's been training on his own.
Yeah.
I've said an interesting point.
Now.
He had an interesting article just recently about with Weah's injuries. Like, and Weah joins the ever-growing list of injured wingers for the U.S. national team, and then he brings up Pulisic immediately. I'm like, what the fuck? That was clickbait if I've ever seen one.
So I don't think so. We're talking about the 3 most important or 3 to shine.
Oh, I'm just bringing up 3 players I think will make a name for themselves this camp.
I don't know.
Have to make a name for themselves one way or another.
Well, I just think they're important, Brett, because they've already made a name for themselves, right?
Well, no, they have to show up is what I'm basically leading to. So Reyna, we talked about some of the games with Reyna in the beginning of his tenure with the United States, and there were a couple of games where he was mopey, he was lagging around. Now, again, those were his early games, and he's definitely stepped up from there.
So, Brett, I'm going to move back I'm going to take back the Gio Reyna part, because you're saying players that need to make a name for themselves.
No, not necessarily a name for themselves, but like they come into this camp and they have to be the players that people are talking about. So he has to come in and be one of the big players.
I'm going to say Serginho Dest has a lot to prove. The hype is big. The talent is as big as the hype, but he hasn't been that good for us in competitive games. He has a lot to prove.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I'll agree with that one completely, yeah.
Yeah. And, if we want to go to players that have to prove something, I mean, Anthony Robinson's kind of even though his glow isn't as bright as Serginho Dest because he doesn't play for Barcelona, he did play for Fulham in the Premier League for a whole season. And I don't think he's really had a lot of great games for us either. Am I wrong?
He hasn't, to be honest.
Depends. It's twofold. I think him getting into the attack has been fine. I think his one-on-one defense has kind of sucked. And terrible because he's a defender, of course, but...
Yeah, I think we could agree that we could say the fullbacks, right? The fullbacks have to prove a lot. All of them, actually. All 4 of them. All 4 of them have been shaky. Bello, Robinson, Yedlin, Dest, they all have a lot to prove. So the fullbacks. But adding to what Brett said, I think a player that could make a name for himself this time, because he was very good in Gold Cup. Actually, he was, in my opinion, the best player in Gold Cup. But now we need to see him in the higher level. And World Cup qualifying is a different beast from this Gold Cup we just watched. And I think it's Miles Robinson. If he can put up strong performances in World Cup qualifying, he'll consolidate himself as like, hey, Chris Richards, you better find a club and play, because Miles has been holding his own pretty damn well here at Brooks. So you're a bench player, regardless of what you're playing.
One of my thoughts was, after watching the Gold Cup with Miles Robinson, is how does McKenzie find a club in Europe? How and not Miles Robinson? I don't get that, Filippo. I mean, what are people? I mean, are Atlanta just being hardcore? Surely there must have been offers for him.
It was a season he was out injured. I don't think it was last season, but the season before maybe.
He was injured. I think right after MLS is back, he was out, I believe.
It was during a international call-up too, if I recall correctly, which is why they're hesitant on going to the Olympics.
I also think Atlanta United sells their players very high, so they're probably asking for a lot of money for Miles, while Philadelphia Union sold Brendan and McKenzie for an okay amount, right? I think Brendan was like 6 million or 5, and McKenzie was less. So it could be that, and there's also, I don't know, McKenzie's younger too, right? So they're like, all right, I'll pay this amount. I'll pay 4 million for McKenzie, whatever the amount was. And they're asking for 8 for Miles. Yeah, Miles might be better, but McKenzie has more potential. I don't know. Remember, soccer also has a lot to do with agents. If he has a good agent, it has a lot to do with the scouting around him. Maybe the scouts see something bad on Miles Robinson that us regular people are not seeing, right? Because I also, not going to lie, I haven't really looked into Miles Robinson besides Gold Cup and a few Atlanta United games. I avoid watching Atlanta United, even though they're not able to beat Orlando City anymore. they've used to in the past. But Mr. Joseph Martinez is not the daddy anymore here. But anyhow, I don't know. I haven't really dug into Robinson. Like I haven't watched. I probably have watched around 10 to 15 games of Miles Robinson my whole life, probably.
Yeah, I've at least watched at least 50 games or 40 games that Miles Robinson has played. And I have to say, I've always been impressed. And I thought his performance at the Gold Cup would scream, I'm not going to be in the MLS much longer. So, but yet, you know, we see guys like Tessman and we see Busio going to Italy. We see Italy flirting with, or Venezia flirting with Eric Palmer Brown, but why not flirt with Miles Robinson during this window at this point after what we just saw? I don't know. Maybe it'll change soon. Who's got another player?
So I said the fullbacks. I said Miles. I think another player that really needs to show. Well, there's a lot of players, right? We could go into Conrad de la Fuente. We can go to Bren there. But I think one player in particular really needs to do something. Otherwise, there's a few players coming for him, and a lot of the fans are tired of him at this point. It's Josh Sargent. A lot of the people are tired of him, and I've defended Josh a lot, but it's also getting tiring to defend him, right? He needs to start scoring for us. He needs to start putting up good performances because Ricardo Pepi's showing up now. PFOC has been fine as well. Siabachu, right? DK might get a transfer, might not. Who knows? But DK's there. Jatsi Zardes did all right in Gold Cup. Greg liked it. So Josh really needs to finally live up to somewhat of the expectations we have for him.
I agree that Sargent needs to score goals for us, but I don't see him going anywhere. Whether he stays the starting striker, if it falls down in depth to say second or third option, that's to be seen. P. Fox had the one really nice goal against Honduras and has been okay-ish since for us. We'll see what Ricardo Pepi can do. I have a lot of props for the kid. He won me $25 in yesterday's game. So, hey. But on top of that, DK, I know he played a lot of the Gold Cup injured and stuff, but that's also on him and Berhalter for continuing to play, but hasn't really wowed me as a whole with the Nats for the most part. I don't know.
What was the DK rumor today? Transfer
Turkey.
rumor.
So it was denied. It was denied.
Okay.
It was that he would go to Fenerbahce in the Turkish league. It was some Turkish outlets were reporting it, but it was denied. Apparently it's Diego Rossi that's going to Fenerbahce.
Easily confused.
Yeah, same player. Not even the same position.
Same stature, definitely. Brett, you had one more?
I did mention I was going to bring in this is the camp for Conrad to make a name for himself with the Nats, because with Weah out, the possibility of playing Reyna in the middle, this is going to be a chance where he may get a decent amount of playing time at a high level for us. And if he steps up, then he's going to push himself up the roster. So this is a big chance for him.
Well, what about the biggest battle that's going on, guys? The biggest battle is not just a striker. Yes, that's a battle. I get it. But the biggest battle's a goalkeeper.
Goalkeeper. Oh, yeah.
Goalkeeper. So let me say this. If Matt Turner gets the first start, which he might, because he's actually playing soccer, while the other guys are picking splinters out of their ass, that might make a difference. Does anybody else here feel like, Filippo, let's go with you, that he might get the start versus El Salvador?
So the thing with goalkeeper is the first question we got to ask ourselves is, will Greg start the same goalkeeper for every match? That's the first thing, because he could, let's say he does start Matt Turner in the first one. I mean, he might just go Matt for all of them. And then there you go.
Barring any knocks and nicks he might get, but yeah.
Yeah, I think Greg probably has his mind made up on the goalkeeping position right now. We just don't know. Because the goalkeeper is one of those positions that sometimes the coach won't even play the best one. He'll play who he trusts. It's a trust position.
Yep.
Right? And they'll raise a lot of questions. And it's regards to who Greg trusts. And, Greg is a Columbus guy, so maybe he'll play Zach Steffen. But maybe Matt Turner's Gold Cup performance might have said just like, man, this guy pretty much carried us along with Miles Robinson and a few others, to say the least. So I don't know. It's more about who does Greg trust right now more. It's the trust position. You put who you trust in the goal. I know, it's going to be funny because some people in the comments are going to go, every position is a trust. No, I was gonna curse again, but I was gonna
Go
say,
for it.
no, idiot. No, idiot. It's not who you trust. Like, for example, maybe Greg trusts Brendan Harrison more than Pulisic, but he's not going to bench Pulisic to put Brendan.
No.
Goalkeepers, sometimes you do bench a goalkeeper that's slightly better, but you put the one you trust. It's just a trust position. But obviously, among the trust, they have to be in a similar level, right? You're not going to bench Neuer for Brad Guzan, right? That's not going to happen. So
I think Brad Guzan could have played for Poland, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm. Well, he should have.
He got how many games did he with us? Like, it's gonna be like 40, 50, easy.
He played a lot.
So he had a pretty decent career with us.
Yeah, you got to give Mini-Me
tail
his
end
due.
of it. No.
Got to give Mini-Me his due. All right. So that's the goalkeeper. All right. No, but quickly, Brett, who's he going to start?
Goalkeeper? Stefan. I would start Turner, but he's going to start Stefan.
Filippo?
He's going to start Zach Stefan.
I'm going against the grain, baby. I'm going Turner. Going Turner for this one. Is there anything else we miss? Is there another player that, has to be super important? I think maybe that answer would be, and you guys can discuss, Adams.
No. You want me to tell you a player that has to make a name for himself?
Yes.
Look, many came up to me and said after Gold Cup that I had to apologize to Kellyn Acosta. Okay. And I'm not going to apologize because I think when I criticized him, he had terrible performance. And when he had good performances, I praised him as well. And he was absolutely fantastic in Gold Cup, especially in the playoffs, right? Not before. Before he was a little shaky. He even was the reason we allowed a goal in the tournament against Martinique. But he was one of the reasons we won that Gold Cup was Kellyn Acosta. But here's the thing with Acosta. His problem was in his career hasn't really been performing well. It has been performing well consistently.
Yeah.
He'll have a game. He'll win a game for us against Mexico. And then on the other game, we will lose because of him. So that is the thing. Kellyn Acosta needs to come into this camp. And hopefully he does this. And okay, he doesn't have to be like he was in Gold Cup, right? Man at the match perform. But he has to come in and not be a liability. He has to come in and we're like, okay, I am comfortable with Acosta playing now at any time. I am still a little worried about Acosta because I want to see a little bit more from him. I understand he was amazing, but consistency has been his issue. If he can come in and have a very good game, or at least have a game where like, man, Acosta was fine. He held his own, played good defense, connected the ball well with the midfield. If he can do that, I think he made a name for himself for real. I was going to get into Sebastian Lletget as well, but I'm kind of tired of talking about Sebastian Lletget.
Well, on the Lletget meter, if we have to play an 8 because Reyna's going to play out wide or Aronson isn't considered a center midfielder, I'd actually prefer at this point to play Acosta over Lletget. I think that's an okay thing to say.
I will say when it comes to the all the people who get on us when we get critical on players, and it's not just specific players in general. I know we've been getting a lot of heat with the Roldan and Lletget criticisms of late, but Derek and I have been critical. We're critical with Pulisic and Reyna the first couple of games back from COVID. They both were, like we said, mopey, trotting around, throwing their hands up in the air. And just because you're critical about a player on a game-to-game basis doesn't mean you're overly critical and claiming that player doesn't belong there. Acosta had bad games, especially leading into Nations League, into the Gold Cup. And then he has games where he's absolutely one of the best players on the field. But not necessarily. Yeah, no, I'll say that. So it's just people have to take it by game-to-game basis. It can't necessarily just say, well, you're overly critical, you should apologize for that. I'm like, no, he sucked at that game. Shit happens.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think also adding to all that is when he has a bad performance, are we supposed to ignore it?
Yeah.
No, we're just going to talk about it. He was bad, and I mean, we were critical of Pulisic in a few games. We were critical. It's just that the reason we're more critical of those players is they have more bad performances when compared to Reina, Pulisic, and those guys. That is the reason. Plus, if we're more critical of Acosta, for example, or Leggett in regards to Giovanni Reina, for example, Gio Reyna's 18, right? Gio Reyna's 18. So, I mean, that's not an excuse, but it's kind of like, look, it's a kid. It's a kid, so take it easy with that. I don't know if you guys can hear my dog.
Well, on top of that, though, we're talking about the Roldans, the Legets, even the Acosta from time to time, and people are critical, and they will have more bad games and good games, and then we're sitting here looking on the outside, looking in, saying, well, there are players that haven't gotten really good shakedown by Berhalter in this sense. From game to game, he wants to be comfortable. I think there was a stint there where Acosta was like in every single game with Leggett for like a year, seemed like. But then we look at somebody like Luca De La Torre, we look at Julian Green, players who should have had a look at some point. And there are other players out there too. And so you're looking at it and you're saying, well, here's other midfield options that could take these positions of these players. Now, again, Acosta can come through and have a good game or have a series of good games at a time. But I mean, that's basically what I was saying, is that there are other options in those positions. Whereas with like Pulisic or Reina, yeah, they have bad games, and there are other players who are going to be vying for their spots too. We talked about the depth in that position. So I mean, we can be critical, but then be realistic with players too.